to deliver this session in where I'll dive into Defender for Office and how it can help us protect against phishing across the different platforms that we have. First off, a little about me. My name is Peter. I work as a cloud and security architect based out of Denmark. My main focus is M365 with a lot of focus on identity security, of course, email security, and tenant-to-tenant migrations as well. I'm a Microsoft MVP and is very active in the community. In Denmark, I run the Danish Workplace Ninja user group, where we do monthly meetups as well. So if any of you is interested, we have a lot of international speakers as well, and we do all sessions online. So if anyone is interested in either speaking or just following that, you are more than welcome to follow us on Workplace Ninjas Denmark. I'll have some links to LinkedIn and my blog if you want to follow me as well or connect there. A little about what I'll be covering in this session. A brief overlook in the threat landscape that we see today, and where it is, or the focus is to have Defender for Office help us against some of the threats we see. And when we talk about threats on email, it's also very important to understand why something like authenticated email is very important as well, because it's integrated an important part of making sure our domain is not used for spoofing, and that we validate the emails coming in as well. So I'll briefly cover that as well. Together with the whole phishing defending part, we also have a brief look at awareness in terms of how we can help our end users become more aware of the threats out there, especially again focus on the different kind of phishing attempts that come in either on email or on Teams, and depending on the licenses available in your M365, we have something available that can help us for these kind of campaign simulations as well, and I'll be covering that. And then we have a brief catch-up or summary at the end. So there should be room for questions in the end, but otherwise, if you have any questions as we go along, then please write them in the chat, and I'll try and follow up at the end of the session. So let's dive into the threats that we currently see here. We have a 2026 threat landscape, which is highly covered by AI-driven attacks. Just within the last couple of years, just the AI phishing part has had an increase in 4 to 5 times more success rates, and a lot of that is driven by that a lot of these phishing attempts is AI driven, making them look a lot more valid to the end users and also to a lot of the systems that is trying to mitigate for phishing as well. Identity is still a highly important part when we talk about phishing, and especially the threats we see out there, because that's often the way that the threat actors get access to our environments. It's compromising the identity and basically using an identity in our environment to sort of leverage the attack further, either just compromising that and you gaining access and using that to maintain or create other attack vectors into our company, or just using our company as a way to leverage access to other companies, basically. So phishing and these business email compromises is therefore still something that is highly evolving, and something we should definitely be very aware of in terms of trying to configure and defend our business against a lot of these kind of attacks. Other ways that we see threat actors getting access to our environments is it's more like cloud targeted, whereas it could be misconfigurations in our M365 environment. So it's very important that you, together with the whole phishing mitigation, also have a clear view and a clear understanding of the configuration or the security baseline of your tenant. And without diving into any of that, a good place to start here will be using the Microsoft Secure Score as a sort of a guidance tool. There are other ways within our M365 to try and set that baseline as well. One of them could be the new security baseline that has come in M365, but the Secure Score is a great way to get the overview, depending on because it looks into the licenses you already have and give you suggestions on where you can do some work to actually increase the security level of your organizations. So that's a very good place to start to make sure that you have the overall security in a decent place. And of course, as we see now in 2026, a lot of this attacks, depending on the region and countries you are in, is a lot of that is also geopolitical instability that is driving some of the factors as well. In terms of going back to what kind of attacks we see where coming in on email, is the classic phishing, malicious attachment. We see a lot of ransomware still, business email compromise, spoofing attacks, trying to compromise accounts, QR code attacks, and a lot of all these are still something that our Defender for Office can help mitigate. And I have just a few examples here on how they could look for the end users. So it's very important that we make sure that we have that decent baseline set in the Defender for Office, because a lot of the features available in Defender for Office can help protect against a lot of these attacks. Going a step back, looking at the authenticated email, which is a very important part of making sure we have a good security baseline on email, is of course protecting our own domain as well, so it will not be used for spoofing attacks. One of the scenarios could be that our own end users receive email which is phishing, but it's based on our own email domains, and that will be prevented if you are in control and have configured the email authentication correct. Other scenarios could be that your email domain is used for phishing and spoofing attacks against other companies, and of course you don't want to do that, because that is towards the reputation of your own email domains as well. So we have different technologies or methods here that need to be configured for each email domain that you own. These are not part of the M365, but more general email configurations, no matter what environment you're working with. And it's highly recommended that you make sure that you review these settings and you review them occasionally and make sure that, depending on configuration changes within the environment, that they are also still configured correctly. So we have 3 different settings that we need to make sure is configured correct. The sender policy framework, often referred to as the SPF, the domain key identified mail, DKIM, and then domain-based message authentication reporting and conformance, the DMARC. It's all methods that needs to be configured no matter what email domain or environment you're using. But of course we reference to the M365 and the Defender for Office in this session, but the configurations will still be the same no matter how you see it. The sender policy framework is basically where we, as the owner of the domain, tell whoever is receiving emails based on us that the emails they're receiving is coming from our systems, and our systems is listed in the IP address list or based on fully qualified domain. So if for instance we I'm using Exchange Online. I have the FQDNs for the Exchange Online configured in here as well. If we're using other sending services, cloud services, whatsoever, we add them to the address in here. So if we have a newsletter cloud service, we need to add that as well because it's sending out on our domain and so on. That's a way of you for you to classify whoever receives email from you. They can validate based on that. And then for the DKIM, every system that is sending out email, we want that to be validated. So for the DKIM record, we have records in M365 that we need to add to the DNS of our domain. If we are using Salesforce or a bulk email service, each of those will have their own DKIM record and will need to be put in here. So basically, it's a sort of a signature, a public key, so to speak, of that service that will be put into the DNS here. And then that is again another way for the receiving system to actually validate that part is okay. The DMARC again is more like where we tell the receiving systems how they should react based on the other parameters that we have configured in DKIM and DMARC. So if we show how it could look in the DNS, the SPF here has different IP addresses. We have Salesforce, we have the protection.outlook.com. All that is added in here, telling that whoever receives email from me can validate it when it comes from systems like these. And then we have the DKIM record as an example. We would have, if we have multiple services sending email like we have in this scenario, we would also have multiple DKIM records. And this is just an example of one of them, how they could look in the DNS. For the DMARC, again, you need to put some settings in here. And as referred to just before, we need to tell the receiving system what they should do when they receive email from us. And we do that by putting in some settings on the policy. In this scenario, my policy, which is referred to as the P equal, is put into a mode called reject. And we have three different settings here: none, quarantine, and reject. None is basically our monitor state where we don't interfere what the receiving system should do. And quarantine, of course, we tell them that if it doesn't match any of the other records we have put in place here on SPF and DKIM, the receiving system should quarantine emails coming from us if it doesn't match those settings. And again, in my scenario with reject, I want the receiving system to reject email from me if it doesn't come from sources that I have pre-classified in my SPF and configured correctly in the DKIM. And that's definitely mechanisms that make sure that we know whoever receives email from us is receiving them from valid sources, and thereby we can ensure that our domains is not used for spoofing attacks as well. So if we briefly see into some of the visuals here, we have a sending email service, my Exchange Online, for instance, or my Salesforce. The receiving servers that receive my email will then look the SPF records up in my DNS, and based on if the receiving cloud service is part of my SPF, they will validate and pass on the email to the end users in their system. So that's a good way of validating that. And if it doesn't match, of course, that will be marked as failed, and eventually it will go into a spam folder, or depending on my DMARC setting, it could be rejected at that level. Again, a little similar for the DKIM. Again, the receiving system is checking against my DNS, but this time it's checking for the public key, and if that matches the signature that is in my email header. So basically, there is when DKIM is configured on the sending system, it will put in a signature in the header of the email, and that should match the public key that we have in DNS. And again, the receiving system can then, based on that, reject the email or make sure it gets passed along to the correct inbox. I'm sorry for the small here, but the slide and the video will be available, so you can definitely see that later on. But basically here, it's a little same. The receiving system is receiving. So you should be able to see now. The receiving system is receiving, and again, it will, based on going through the transport layer of the receiving server, it will then look at the DMARC, and again, based on the policy that I set up, it will then pass, quarantine, or reject. So it depends on the policy that I set, and if it matches the settings that I previously set within the SPF record or within the DKIM record. So again, it's very important for our own domains, at least, to configure these things to make sure that our domains will not be used for spoofing. And mostly, of course, that will protect our domain or domain reputation out into the world for everyone receiving our emails. But it's also protecting our own end users, so our domains is not used for spoofing going back into our own systems. So it basically goes both ways, but the majority here is of course making sure it's not used for any kind of spoofing and phishing attacks going out. So we need to protect all our domains. And the recommendation here is make sure you have this configured for all domains you own, because you could have branding domains and so on that is maybe not used for email, but it's still a good practice, because if it's referred to your domain or your company, there could be a resemblance or something that you can refer that domain or that branding back, and you want to make sure that it's protected by these settings as well. Of course, if it's not used by email, you don't configure basically anything in the SPF or maybe even in the DMARC or DKIM, but you still want to have some settings put in there, and in the DMARC make sure that it's then set to reject. So whoever tries to leverage or maybe use your branding domains will at least not be able to use them for spoofing. So going forward, there are a lot of tools that can help you check if your settings are in place. You can use basic, go through the DNS yourself. There are services on the internet that can do the same. I tend to work a lot in this area, so I built my own tool, which is available here. And it's available for free for anyone who want to use it. So you can use it on the URL called domainradar.app here. And basically it can, you put in your domain and do just a scan, and it'll just tell you the basic DNS information and how they are in terms of exactly these important email security settings that we need to have in place. So it's and this is just one of a ton of different services out there. So there are multiple others, and all of them are very good. But you're more than welcome to have a try on my tool, and feedback is very welcome. You can connect on LinkedIn if you have anything. So going forward here to the M365, the Defender for Office is sort of the security boundary we have when we talk about email and moving into other applications such as Teams. So basically, this is the features and the products that we have available in M365 that can help us secure our end users across multiple communication platforms. And the main one is still within email and where that fits in terms of email security. When we talk about email security in Exchange Online and thereby M365 email, we have different layers within any M365 tenants, so to speak. And that is referred to Exchange Online Protection, the EUP. And then on top of those, we have the MDO, Microsoft Defender for Office, Plan 1 and Plan 2. And as soon as you move up the ladder here, depending on the licenses you have available, you get more features available. So it gets better to do detection, you get better investigation and hunting features and so on. And just brief look on what is available in here. So with the basic set of Exchange Online protection features, you get a very basic set of anti-spam, anti-phishing, anti-malware feature set, where it's sort of using some lookup lists to make sure everything is okay when they get received. Everything that is registered here can be put into a quarantine, or you can configure it to move it to end user spam folders and so on. You have some basic reporting, so you at least can follow it, and you have the message trace, which is very helpful for these scenarios to try and investigate what's going on with the email coming into Exchange. So it's a very basic set of tools available here. But as soon as you move to the Defender for Office, you get that more advanced feature set, because you now get a feature set in terms of the safe attachments, where it intelligently can look at the attachments coming in, and not just look at them while they arrive into your systems, but basically it's also able to sort of look at the email, and if it then after the checking of the email finds out that, well, this email or attachments needs to be pulled from the end users, it can sort of sap the attachment from the end user's mailbox if it flags as a suspicious email attachment. A little the same for links. It will try and determine based on the links available within email if they are secure. But if there are anything suspicious or even malicious around a link in an email, that email will automatically be flagged. You might also see, if you're using these systems, that as soon as you click an email link, it goes through sort of a service telling you that it's redirecting you. And that's another way of actually making sure that there are no malicious content hidden behind that link, so to speak. The safe attachment part will work across most of our collaboration services in M365, and we can configure that within the MDO. So if we have an attachment that is sort of shared within Teams, or it's shared within a OneDrive, it can actually catch that attachment if it's a malicious attachment we see in here. We have advanced configurations available on anti-phishing protections. So they are more intelligent in terms of some machine learning behind the scenes here. We have some special impersonation detection features available. And some of these impersonation detections basically is a list where we can make sure that we put our C-level or important people into that list, so they get extra additional protection added whenever email comes into our organization to those users. And then the overall real-time attachments is a level better on, and all that is basically included in the Plan 1. The Plan 1 can either be purchased individually as an add-on to whatever services you have, but otherwise E1 is typically the service or the SKUs you see available within the E3 license schemes. Whereas the Plan 2 is typically what you see available within the Plan 2 services, or the E5 services, sorry. But again, can also be added on top of, let's say, the E3 if you want to add extra capabilities to your service. Some of the more advanced features that is available of the Plan 2 is you get better tools for exploring and hunting the threats we see in here. you have the availability of sort of create automated investigations and response based on whatever comes in. So there's a lot of extra threat and hunting capabilities included in that additional plan here. Another major feature is the attack simulation training. So the attack simulation training is the place where we can create simulations target that we can push out to our end users, and where they are then sort of targeted with simulated phishing attacks and malware attacks and so on, and we can follow that within the attack simulation portal, how that goes with the end users. And again, if we have some end users that might click on those wrongful links or open the attachments or whatever kind of simulation we are running, we will automatically see all that in the reporting in the attack simulations. And based on the information we then have, we can configure the campaign to automatically deploy training associated with that kind of simulation that we ran. So if it was a pure phishing attack or drive-by URL attack, we can then also create a campaign that includes that training. So as soon as the user has clicked that, shortly after they will actually receive the training made available to them. So where do we see the Defender for Office? Well, we have a lot of different security products available within the M365 scheme, and the Defender for Office is basically just one of them. Again, mentioned earlier, it's very much targeted phishing and attachments we see coming into our organization, no matter if it's email or within Teams. It works very well with the rest of the framework we have available. You work with it within the Defender portal, and whatever signals and alert comes into the Defender for Office in terms of flagged emails and so on, that we can then propagate further on if we have a CM product like the Sentinel. So we have all the alerts coming up into one place. If we take the step back and look at where the sum of the parts of MDU sits in terms of whatever happens when we receive an email. When we receive that email that's coming from the outside, we have different layers of protection going in terms of email. Some of them is what we saw or referred to as the Exchange Online Protection part. A lot of those basic features is part of either the edge protection and some of them the content filtering, but a lot of the advanced parts that we have of the MDO sits in this sender intelligence layer, where we have some mailbox intelligence, we have some advanced post-delivery protection features, sort of what they refer to as the 0 hour auto purge, the SAP feature. This is what I also refer to, where it can actually go back and pick out that attachment from the end user's email box and remove it again. So those different features are then placed within the flow that we see when an email comes into the organization. Just as referral, I put all the different feature sets that is available in here. I know it's very small, but it's also just for reference. I'll make sure that the links on the slide deck here will be available on my GitHub later on after the session. But this is just so you get an overview. If you tend to look towards the MDO Plane 2, you can get that overview. It's from the Microsoft Docs, so you can also find the similar information on the official documentation for the MDO. So basically, Defender for Office gives you, besides what I told you earlier, options for something that is called simplified configurations. And with simplified configuration, we get something called preset security policies. Basically, preset security policies is a different set of templates. So it's an easy way to sort of set a baseline within the Defender for Office. So we have a strict set of policies, and we have a standard set of policies. And it's some recommendation that Microsoft has made as part of these templates. So you can easily set that in your organization and make sure your level, either for the whole organization or for a subset of users, is set to either a standard, and maybe a subset of users has the strict policies. So it's a very good way of actually making sure you hit a certain baseline in terms of getting your MDO to a specific or certain baseline here. And as mentioned earlier, you get then all the investigation features that we have available as part of the MDO. If we look into those security policies, we can then work with them in multiple ways. You can either set those policies, so it's basically the template that is set for, as mentioned earlier, the whole organization or just a subset of users, or you can use something called the configuration analyzer. And basically, the configuration analyzer will measure what your setting is real time in your organization, and it will highlight you with recommendations based again on those security policies that is available from the presets. So you can compare your actually configuration against the standard presets or the strict presets, and then you can select which of them you might want to increase directly in that portal. For those of you who like working with PowerShell or automate things, you can also do it to a PowerShell module called the Orca Office 365 Recommended Configuration Analyzer. So it's basically the same settings we have available here. But overall, the preset security policies is sort of consider them as template with recommendations on how to easily increase or set a certain baseline for your Defender for Office here. But I think, let me just show you a little later here how that works. So next up, configuring these things. Of course, these baselines is a very good place to start off, but you need to make sure you understand all the actual requirements for your organization and then apply them so it fits your organization. So even though we have these baselines or preset security policies available, they might not fit completely to your organization. So therefore, it's of course a need that you fully understand the requirements that you have, because there are always exceptions, and you need to make sure it suits your situation and understand how these Microsoft recommended settings based on, for instance, the presets can be used and then apply them to your own. And one way of doing that could be using that configuration analyzer to easily match up what your settings is and compare them up against the settings that is recommended in these presets. Other ways that you need to make sure is configured here. I can highly recommend the impersonation protection part, where we enable sort of an additional layer of mailbox intelligence, and we do that by adding certain people into the impersonation protection list. That could be the CF level, it could be the finance, legal, people who might be more targeted towards phishing attacks, or people who might even be more the people who could be used as the sender of these compromised emails as well. And the system will then, based on the information on the machine learning behind it, actually help make sure that no one is getting emails that looks like it's coming from the CEO or CFO. And some of the settings that you need to be really aware of here is simple things like the display name. So if it's configured and the CEO is sending an email from his own Gmail, that will very likely be flagged as one of the impersonation, because we now have an email coming from the outside which has the same display name as the CEO, even though it's just a very simple email that he sent to himself because he needed to remember something. But that will be flagged if you have configured something like the impersonation protection. So there are also something you need to be aware of when configuring this and communicate that to the end users as well. Other ways to help our end users is use the safeties available in Exchange, and simple things like you don't often get an email from whoever just sent you that email, and the same goes for the domains and so on. And that's other ways to help our users to be aware of the emails that they are actually receiving here. And it's something that you can enable within the Exchange environment. The same goes for like the external tag. We can enable that, and that will be available within any Outlook client, no matter platform. And it will just be the external tag that some of you might be familiar with, showing that this email actually came from the outside. So we have very simple things, basically, that we can enable and make sure that can help our end users to actually get a better view of, oh, here was an email that came from the outside, or I don't often get emails from this user, why are they sending me something like this? So that goes very well hand in hand with the awareness simulations. And emails is of course not the only platform anymore that we see targeted. Phishing is basically the new surface where we tend to see more and more. Could be users receiving either something from the external users, or maybe a guest user that has sort of been the door in a system, and thereby trying to send a malicious link or a malicious email. So if we have a look at the MDO features that can help us protect against these things into Teams, we have the SafeLinks, where we actually have checks against the links that is being shared within Teams. We have the attachments, so if we have any factions attachments going back and forth, they'll be protected as well. The impersonation protection part will also be covering this, and then the zero or our auto protect purge feature, which I also referred to earlier, where we can actually pull that attachment if it was flagged as compromised, but even though it was delivered to the end user, we can pull it again. That part is also available within Teams. And if you have a look at these Teams features, again, here's just an overview to get that familiarity on where are we, depending on the different plan of Defender for Office that is available. But let's just have a brief look into some of the settings we have available. I'll just be covering some of them. I still have enough time here, so I'll cover the most important parts in terms of what I talked about here. So for the MDO, where you're working with these policies, is that you should be able to see my screen here with the threat policies. If not, then please let me know in the chat. So when we go into the threat policies, we have the preset security policies I mentioned. Basically, you should see those as sort of a template. So for this scenario, I have configured the standard protection policy, and I have set that for all recipients. You could do the same for the strict, and then basically set it towards maybe just specific recipients in the organization, in your organization. So you could have the standard set for all users, and then the strict policy setting for everyone who works in, let's say, finance, so they have a different level of protection. The standard and best practices recommended by Microsoft. And there we have the different policies available in here. So anyone who has worked with MDO knows we have our different set of policies available in here, where you can basically create additional ones targeted certain users, or you can create your own, you can tweak the settings in here and so on. So whatever has been configured will be configured as part of these policies in here. And you see the standard preset has automatically been deployed here along with the default ones. But if you want to compare that against your basic set of configuration policies. The configuration policy analyzer is basically the place to go here, because here you can see some recommended settings, and basically it tells you, well, your current configuration is currently at let's say 15 for this setting in terms of how long will the retention be kept. Currently it's 15 days. The recommended is 30 days. So you can basically flag this and apply the recommendations right away in here. When applying configuration or changes and so on in here, you can basically follow your changes and the right configurations in the configuration analysis here in the portal. So that's a very good place to start and dive into a lot of the settings you have available in here. While we are in the demo, let me just show you the attack simulations right away. I have that coming up on slide deck shortly. But in here, this is the place where we can configure our
quick
awareness.
Reminder, Peter, you have around 5 minutes left. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm going directly at the attack simulation right away. So thank you. Just to cover this in here, we can configure simulations. Whenever a configuration has been configured, we have reports available, and we can see exactly how many users got the email, how many deleted, how many clicked the links in the emails, and so on. And if they did, we can then see the same goes for training. Get that overview of, okay, whoever clicked it got the training, did they complete the training, and so on. And we have a very different sets of simulations available in here, and I'll not cover them because of the time we have, but you see credential harvesting, malware attachment, linking attachments, malware drive-by URLs. So there are a lot of the attacks we see out there are available in the portal in here, and it's a very good place to actually increase the awareness for end users. I know there's a lot of third-party stuff out there, just as good as this one, but if you already have the P2 license, you actually have this available directly within the MDO. So very important here is that manage the Defender for Office like a SecOps. So no matter the size of your organization, if you're just a small team, still try to manage this as you had a SecOps team. Microsoft has some guidance available on the official documentations, where you have some recommendations on what you need to check daily and weekly, like incident queue, review the campaigns we have, weekly follow-up on mail flow status, the track threat protection status report, and so on. Some things that you always need to sort of keep in mind here. And also keep in mind that no solution for security is 100% bulletproof. We will see false positives and false negatives in here. But again, the more the system run and the better you have educated users to report back, the better the system will be to handle a lot of these things. I mentioned the Orca for automation. That's just one way of doing it. We have other tools in terms of security. I highly recommend looking toward the Meister tool if you haven't looked into that. That not covers most of the M365 platform with security recommendations. As mentioned earlier, if users report anything, educate them so they can report back either directly in Outlook, or as you see in the corner here, they can do the same within Teams. And that's just another way of making sure that our end users get that awareness. Spend the time to make sure they get some awareness training so they're aware of the attacks out there, because the end users is one of our weakest links in most of organizations. And of course, make sure that the training is relevant. And if you look at the attack simulations, we have the different types of campaigns that I showed you in here. But with very good reports to follow up on it. I skipped the demo here because we took it just earlier. But just to wrap up on time here, best practices in terms of using MDO, trying to increase or mitigate phishing and so on. Don't just follow the recommendations for Microsoft, but very much know your own environment, because a lot of environment can be quite complex in terms of email and email delivery. So you need to know your own environment very good here and know where you have the exceptions that you need to configure in terms of, for instance, looking up towards these preset security baselines that we have. Making sure you have the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC in place. Make sure you do that for all the domains. And DMARC needs to be configured together with the SPF and DKIM, and then follow up on the DMARC reports you get. That's the only way you can actually still have that overview. In terms of the MDO, a good place to start is the preset policies, but also use the configuration analyzer. It's a very good place to actually see where are you in terms of your real-time configuration, and lean that towards recommended practices from Microsoft. Making sure the Teams protection is enabled. You do that within the settings of the Defender portal. You can click off that you want this to be protected within Teams and SharePoint and so on. You need to make sure that's done. Do awareness training, not necessarily the attack simulations. You could use other third parties, but the end user awareness is a very important part of this as well. So as a summary, wrapping up, what I've covered is ways to try and improve your organization for email security and phishing across different platforms, but also prioritize the end user awareness here. As a wrap up, since this will be available, anyone who want to deep dive, the Ninja training from Microsoft is very good for each product. Yeah, that will be available, and I'll make sure my slide deck will be available as well. Anyone who wants to connect is very welcome. And in terms of phishing, QR, and so on, here's a QR code, but this one will send you directly to my LinkedIn, where you are more than welcome to connect if you want to. And if you have any questions coming up later, you are more than welcome to reach out. But going a little over time, I hope that was okay. That's basically what I had, and I hope it was valuable information.
Thank you, Peter. That was really an informative session, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you, audience, for being so wonderful.
It was a pleasure.